I screwed up. I didn't save a zucchini for the intro. But know that today we're learning how to use zucchini in a way that you might not have ever thought of. I'm going to shred them and dehydrate them, and then we're going to make some yummy, savory zucchini muffins with other vegetables that we've dehydrated in the past, and have yummy snacks that are super nutritious, taste great, are just beautiful, and awesome things. I'm Darcy, I'm your dehydrating BFF, and I'm here to help you learn how to do that overflow of zucchini that you may be having at this time of year out of your garden. Or maybe, unlike me, kind of unlucky that way, people keep trying to hand you bags of zucchini all summer long because they don't know what to do with them. But I'm going to show you a secret on how to preserve zucchini for the whole year that you can use anytime and have zucchini goodness all the time. So come on, let's go get started. Come on. All right, so our zucchini has been washed and ready to go. I'm going to cut off the blossom ends and the, I don't know, what do you call that in? Don't remember. So I'm going to go ahead and take these and peel, because my family has requested that I take the peels off whenever I'm using it in food, because they can taste it. It makes it a little bitter, and if I can get them to eat it even without that, without the skin, I'll be happy to accommodate that. But I'm not going to let this go to waste because, oops, sorry about the noise. I'm not going to let this go to waste because I want to make sure that I dry it in order to add it to my green powder. Or what I can also do is just go ahead and put it in my compost, because composting food is not a waste. It is the way that we feed the food that feeds us. So never think that I wasted my food. I could have done something better with it because I composted it. Maybe I could have found another way to use it. Composting is an excellent way to use leftover scraps of your veg and your fruit that you can't use in the kitchen. Compost pile is a great place for it. There. And when we're talking, when you talk about a recipe and when you're using zucchini and they say squeeze all of the moisture out, I don't know if you can see that. You may not be able to see it on camera very well, but these things have so much water content in them. They're just kind of like oozing water out as I skin them, peel them. I'm not skinning them. They're not a human. But we're not doing that, because in order to squeeze out all of that moisture, you're also squeezing out nutrients and flavor. When you dehydrate, you're taking out the water content, but not necessarily all the nutrients, unless you get them heated up and stuff like that. So I know a lot of people like to do that first because they feel like it's going to make their drying time shortened. But what you're really doing is getting rid of flavor and nutrients. Don't bother. The dehydrator will take care of it for you. Okay, so we have all of our zucchini peeled. We have our zucchini skins, which are going to dry because this is going to go into green powder, which won't affect it because I do so many different kind of green that it's not going to really affect the flavor at all. What I also have here are some English cucumbers, because I got them cheap at the store and they didn't actually have any cucumbers at all. It's like the height of cucumber harvest season and they don't have any. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to leave an iCard up here, and I'll leave it in the description box below, tzatziki sauce that I make. That's also a way that I get in extra vegetables and extra protein because it's made with Greek yogurt, and I've started doing blended cottage cheese into it as well. It's not true tzatziki because tzatziki doesn't contain cottage cheese, but it's a way for me to add a little extra protein. And I don't buy the expensive blended cottage cheese. I just throw it in my blender, blend it up, and then put it in a container. And that way I don't have the lumps, because I'm not necessarily a fan of the lumps. So I'm going to make that as well, but I'm not going to make it today. I'm just going to show you. I've already done it, and the video is for it right here. But since I'm already going to have all of the stuff out and getting dirty, I'm going to go ahead and run these through so that I can have some extra cucumber for my dip. Right now what I'm doing is just going through and cutting my zucchini in half, because they won't fit into my food processor to do a whole one. But something I wanted to give you, none of my zucchini are big enough to bother to do this, but if you had larger zucchini that had gotten out of hand and they're big, but when you cut them open you notice they're just really a lot of seeds on the inside, just take a spoon and go through here and just dig out, make a boat and dig out the inside and get rid of those seeds. These are not old enough to bother to do that, but that's the easy way you can do it. And I am so sad that I cannot find it, my grandmother's grapefruit spoons. I don't know where I've put them. I have a feeling I know they're in storage, but what they were spoons that had a serrated end here, so that when you put it in grapefruit to dig out the segments, it just cut right through it. That would make the perfect way to come through here and just scoop out your seeds on those. If you happen to have one, don't go buy one for that. Okay, so I have done my first stretch of these. And what I do is I take them directly from the food processor here and start loading my trays. And this is a pretty fine shred, but there is a smaller shred that I could do on my food processor. Do what works for you, whichever one you prefer. And like greens, when I'm doing them, I will mound this up because they will shrink really fast. There's so much water content in this that I don't worry about trying to get it spaced out in a way that you've got plenty of like all of your shreds on a single like place for themselves. I mound this up some because it will dry quickly, it will shrink very fast, and I won't have to worry so much about it. And what I can do is during the drying process, just walk through here and then just like shush it up while it's on the trays. Just shush it up and it will kind of break up any clumps and it will let stuff get dry. So there's our first tray down. All right, so here we go. We have our 4 trays of zucchini, all shredded and ready to go, and 2 trays of cucumber. Now the cucumber is a little denser than the zucchini, so I will have to come through here and zhuzh it up. Make sure I do that to give it space. We have it set for 25 hours. It's not going to take this long. I never go by the time. I set it ahead so I don't have to worry about it. And our temperature is 120F because that's where I want it. You can do it from 125 down, whatever temperature you want to use. And here we go. So here are our trays of zucchini. Doing it at a lower temperature helps keep the color of your zucchini. So sometimes if you dry it a little higher, you might find that it browns more. It also has to do with how ripe the zucchini was, but we've got good color on this. I like when it's a lighter color. To me, it's just a visual thing. It has nothing to do with how good it really is. But there's the zucchini. It comes off in little like sheets like this sometimes, even after I zhuzhed it up and moved it around, but it's easy to break up like that. No problem whatsoever. So I want to show you the difference between my last batch of zucchini that I did and the new batch. One of the difference in color is the fact that I did these with the skins on and this is with the skins off. So you don't have the darkness from the skin, but also it just turned a little brown in that drying, and this one is a little less so, partly because I dried at a little lower temperature this time than a higher temperature, so it kind of kept it, but it will also have everything to do with the ripeness of the zucchini. Less ripe zucchini is not going to brown as much because the natural sugars aren't developed as well. So I'm going to rotate, which means I'm going to use the older stock in what I'm baking today, and the newer stock is going to go into storage because I want to make sure I'm rotating through stuff so that I don't have old stuff sitting on the shelf that could have been used. So that's what we're going to do. So actually, I'm just going to recycle my jar. I'm going to take this, empty out the old, because I'm going to end up using all of this today. Because what I don't use in the recipe today, I am going to actually end up making into a flour, which is basically just zucchini powder, but you can call it flour too. We're just gonna, do that. And I'm gonna put my new into that jar. I do not need to clean it. It is clean, just like this, right into the jar. You do also want to make sure before you put it in that it's cooled off. You never want to put warm food into a jar for storage because it can create problems down the line with mold and moisture. So these are completely dry. I don't have to worry about the dryness of it, but you don't want to put it in when it's cool. Just like you don't check the doneness of your product when it's still warm, you also do not want to store it while it's still warm. And I'm going to put that image right here about the ratio of drying from fresh to dried to powder for zucchini. You can take a screenshot of it, or I'll have a link down in the description box below about how to get to it so that you can print it off for yourself. So basically what I do is, because this jar is too big, but I know I'm going to fill it up later, this is a time when a vacuum sealer can come in handy because you don't want all of that extra space here. So I can just vacuum seal it and get it ready for the next time I fill it up. I usually don't let my zucchini last for more than a year. It can go for 2 years reliably, optimally. After that, you start, losing some flavor and some texture in it and some nutrients. Over time, it is not one of the longer lasting foods, the way that potatoes and other hard foods are. And because I have the worst record of hitting the record button when I switch to video on my phone for my camera, I didn't catch this. So I'm going to do it again. So what I have right here is some dried vegetables in water. I'm making a savory muffin, which allows me to have something other than sweet when I want to have like some breakfast or a snack in the afternoon. And so what I did was that it calls for 3 cups of finely chopped vegetables. So I'm basically taking some finely done dehydrated vegetables and replacing them. So 1/4 cup of dried vegetables equals 1 cup of fresh. So you're going to adjust a little bit for volume, but because I've done this for a while, I kind of know what I'm doing for this recipe, like how I like it. So what I did was I took 1/4 cup of the mixed vegetables, or just all the mixed vegetables, and I did a 1/2 cup of dried zucchini, and I put them in some water to allow them to rehydrate, because what I don't want to do is put in dried vegetables into a recipe that's a baking recipe without adjusting the water content, because they need to rehydrate, or else you're going to have crunchy vegetables in it, or it's going to take so much of the moisture out of the recipe that it then dries out your muffins. Now, what you tend to do for a recipe like this is that if it calls for your zucchini to be completely strained of all moisture, then you want to rehydrate it, do that as well, and then put it in. That way you're not putting any excess moisture into the recipe. This particular one I've done often enough, I kind of have an idea of how it's going to work. Then what I'm also doing here, where I realized I wasn't recording, is that I'm going to take some really finely diced cranberries. The recipe calls for maple syrup, which I don't have right now. We are out and I haven't purchased any more because the price of maple syrup is through the roof. And we don't use it regularly enough for me to buy it or remember it when I need to. So if I can come up with something else, I do. But I also kind of like having a little sweet bite in all the savory. I don't want a sweet muffin, but I don't mind having that little tiny bite of sweet in with all the savory. Yes, I know some of you are going to yell at me because I'm doing this right on my counter, but I'm not going into the counter enough to do damage, so don't yell at me. It's my mother. I hear her in my head right now screaming at me about the fact that I'm not using a cutting board. And 99% of the time I do, but today I didn't. So this chopped up really fine means I'm not going to get like a big chunk of cranberry in there, but I'm going to get a little sweet. And a girly needs sweet every once in a while. And typically I wouldn't rehydrate these when I put them in, but because I'm already doing some rehydration, I don't mind just adding them into the bunch, because I'm going to do a little trick with all of this in just a few minutes to help it so that it doesn't float to the bottom of the mushroom. So I've got my zucchini, my vegetables, my cranberries in here ready to go. So set this aside. Now what I'm going to do with the bulk of my old zucchini from last year is I'm going to powder it. Now this is going to take a lot. I'm not going to show you through the whole process, but I'm basically going to put it in my blender. I'm going to blend it up. I could get my big blender out, but today I've got enough stuff happening. I don't want to pull out big equipment. This is here all the time, so I'm just going to go through a couple of cycles of it. All right, out of that big batch, this is all that's left. I've got my 1/4 cup for my recipe right here. I dropped a little bit of whole in there. I'll toss it in the vegetables. So this is for the recipe. Let's get started. Okay, what I am going to do now is, these have gone long enough. I'm going to strain out the excess water, which I can use later, either if I need some extra liquid for the recipe. If I notice that it needs just a little bit of extra, I can pull it out of this, or I can tuck it in the refrigerator and use when I cook next. I can use this water on top of it. Sometimes I have a little container of frozen broth, because basically that's what that is. It's a bit of a vegetable broth. Okay, so that's enough. It's not going to take out that much more. So I'm just set that aside, and that we'll use later. Okay, one of the things I do when I'm making any kind of muffin, when you sometimes have things that fall to the bottom when you want it to be mixed in, is I add a bit of the flour that you use to make the muffin into that thing and spread it out. Somehow, this seems to help. So, like sometimes with chocolate chip muffin, kind of things, and the chocolate chips always fall at the bottom. Sometimes this has been a game changer for me. So I'll just let this sit like this for a little while. You're going to end up making a paste. You're going to have to wash your hands after. All right, so like most muffin recipes, dry flour, zucchini flour. This calls for a cup and a 1/4 of flour. I replaced the 1/4 cup with zucchini flour. You don't want to replace all the flour because it needs it. Then spices, not part of the recipe. I'm going to link it down in the description box below, but this is kind of like, it's what I use to go buy, but it's not what this is turning out to be, not how I usually make it. So I've done savory spices, garlic and onion powder, because this calls for fresh green onions. I don't have any dried right now. So I'm using a lot of onion powder. So that's going in there as well. All the dry. Okay, there we go. There's the dry part. Now in a container, I am doing the mostly wet. So I've already done some lightly scrambled eggs, then milk, and a cup of cottage cheese, just kind of blend all that together, wipe up my mess. Oops, drop that. Then to our dry, we're going to add the wet, the muffin method, like I was always taught by Alton Brown. It's going in there. Along with my veg. And along with most of the cheese. Not all of it though, because I want to, you know what, I'm going to top the rest of the cheese on top. I can always get more cheese. Then I'm just going to mix all this together. Now the original recipe calls for sausage. I'm not doing sausage this time. I'm going to keep it to just the veg. This feels pretty dry this time from what I usually do. And you don't want to overwork the flour to make these tough. But I am going to add a little bit more liquid. My eggs that finally settled. Take a tiny little bit of this broth and add it in. It just feels really dry today. Okay, so here's the thing about muffins. If you overwork them, they get tough. So, also, the Alton Brown method for doing muffins, which I learned so much from cooking and baking from him for the science, is that if you mix this up and then just let it sit, what it's going to allow to happen is the flour gets rehydrated for a better muffin in the end. But if you keep overworking it, it makes the glutens get all weird. So what you want to do, mix it just enough and then stop and walk away. Okay, so typically I use a muffin liner in my muffin pan, but because I'm taking these with me, I don't want to accidentally leave those on my trip, so I'm just going to do it without it. So I lightly sprayed my muffin tin, and I'm just taking my cookie scoop and scooping into each bin. I don't want to really overfill, but oh, I forgot the baking powder. Darcy! And this calls for 2 tablespoons of baking powder. So I'm going to have to add it in after the fact. You're going to see one of these without it. So you can see the good thing about baking powder is when it reacts to things, it's going to make it rise. But I forgot. So let me get this mixed in real quick. I'm going to end up overworking that dough, but that's fine. They're a little tough. That just means they won't crumble so hard, maybe. So I'm going to take our scoop and just start scooping into our bins. This is supposed to make 12. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it makes a little more. Sometimes it makes less. If you use a scoop for doing this, this was a game changer for me about doing muffins. When the kids were little and I was making peanut butter and jelly muffins, I was making breakfast muffins, I was doing so many of those once upon a time that when I got one of these, it just made things go so much easier. Okay, these are going into a 400-degree oven from anywhere from 20 to 25, 30 minutes. You just have to test it depending on what you put inside of it. I usually start at about the 22-minute mark and start checking them to see how well done they are. All right, fresh out of the oven, and this is what they look like. And as my grandma taught me, dip. Is there stuff on it? It's not done. But to me, this is fine. This is where it's just at the point that while they sit here and cool, they're going to cook a little bit more and take care of that stuff that you would come out with. If it was like a lot of it on there, then it needed more time. But they need to cool off before you do anything with them. So they're still going to contain all of that thermal energy happening there. It's fine. And you know what? Can you tell out of all of these which one did not have the baking powder? I know which one it is. But can you guess? Tell me in the comments. Do you know which one it is? Top, middle, lower, first, second, third, fourth. It's that one right there. And it's not bad. So it's not like it desperately needed it, but it didn't have the same fluff factor that the other ones did, because that's what baking powder does. It gives you rise. This is what I wanted. It's one of the things I use my offset spatula for a lot too. Not just for doing icing, but this is what they look like. Yummy. Awesome brownie. Or try muffin, Darcy. This is an awesome muffin. It's still gonna be a little hot, but I'm gonna open it up for you. How about that? That is what it looks like on the inside. It's hard to see all the vegetables in there, but they're there. They're there in a big way. So I made these so I can have some snacks during the day and on the weekend this weekend when I'm gonna be traveling to go to a star party of sorts, where we're taking out some scopes out into a field and having a night of just watching the stars. And the meteors, because there's a meteor shower this weekend as well. There will be through August. So if you get out in the dark sky at night, in the middle of the night, and look up, you might see meteors happening because the Perseids are coming. So that's what I'll be doing this weekend. So I need to save these for when I need meals and snacks when I'm out. But I'm going to end up eating these all day today. If you want to see something I've made with dehydrated foods, watch these videos right here because they will walk you through how to use the foods that we do. So today I did cucumbers. We didn't do a recipe with them. That will be the first one here. A tzatziki sauce from dried cucumbers that is awesome. So remember that nevertheless, she preserved. No matter what's going on, she can preserve. And until I see you again next time, happy dehydrating.